Mortgage fraud is actually a subcategory of the financial institution fraud. The way the FBI defines this is a crime characterized by some type of material misstatement, misrepresentation, or omission in relation to a mortgage loan, which then is relied upon by a lender. A lie that influences a big decision about whether, for example, to approve a loan, accept a reduced payoff amount, or agree to certain repayment terms is mortgage fraud. Equity skimming: an investor may use a straw buyer, false income documents, and false credit reports to obtain a mortgage loan in the straw buyer's name. Subsequent to the closing, the straw buyer signs the property over to an investor in a quitclaim deed, which relinquishes all the rights to a property and provides no guarantee to title.
The property, it required the developer to execute these deeds, effectively quitclaim deeds. And what that said, what the deed in lieu of foreclosure is that rather than foreclosing on the mortgage, the developer agreed that the city could just take title to the property without having to go through that foreclosure process. And if I could just I'll just keep going. And so at the time that I think the second development agreement was executed, new quitclaim deeds were executed by FDP's member, Rodney Blackwell, and those are currently being held. Now, the quitclaim deeds, I mean, they're just a piece of paper sitting in a file. They're not recorded with the Register of Deeds.
Anybody know what time it is?
No.
Just close to 6.
It's talking Racine time, George.
Okay.
Welcome back. Mr. George Myers.
Morning.
Mr. Jim Spodek, producer emeritus. Or no, I guess you're current producer, aren't you? Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host. And what are we going to talk about today? How about Machinery Row?
Yeah, let's try something different.
Boy, we've been kicking this dead horse for a long time, and it's not dead yet.
That is right.
Yeah, we thought it was dead, but it's not dead.
Bucking bronco now.
Well, there was a complaint filed by Sam Azarian on the 3rd of September.
Right.
Sam was one of the primary property owners down at the Machinery Row area where all that land was purchased by the city, well, by an independent developer.
Yeah.
And somehow it ended up in the hands of the city. Well, this is Sam Azarian has filed a suit against the city on September 3rd, and on the 14th of October, the city filed a motion to dismiss. However, the Azarian attorney, his legal team, on the 4th of November, before the judge made a decision on the dismiss motion, Sam's attorney filed an amended complaint, which is entirely within the rights of the plaintiff to do, and this time they're alleging fraud on the part of the city. So it's getting interesting, gentlemen, because the judge did not deny the subsequent motion by the city to dismiss the case. He said, "Nah, we're not even gonna hear this.
Right.
There's not even going to be a...
Don't even get to go to court and argue about whether it should be dismissed or not.
No.
It's dismissed.
This is going to trial.
Which I think is unusual, particularly when the city is the one getting dismissed. Government gets so much preferential treatment these days in the courts. It's just refreshing to see someone in the private side get the real, get their rights defended.
Well, one of the things I want to kind of bring up on that is the taxpayer is now into it for over $10 million. So it's great that Sam is bringing this forward, but the thing is it can shine some light on the fact that the taxpayers have now been basically swindled out of $10 million and counting. Now it's going to cost the city, if this goes to trial and there is a settlement, it's going to cost the taxpayers more money. But the fact is that you've got to bring this type of stuff to the forefront to correct it, because really this is what the problem is. Yeah, there is fraud, and I think we're going to kind of talk about a little bit about the complaint, but the fraud is at the base of the complaint, and that's what's interesting about this. They're not talking, obviously relocation, you did some things wrong, but what you really did, which is refreshing in this complaint, is it was fraudulent.
It was an abusive position in power.
Absolutely.
And they perpetrated fraud on the people who were down there, who owned property or were down there. And it's been going on for years now. And like you said, $10 million has pretty much gone down the tubes. And that's a lot of money.
The other thing I'd like to just compliment our producer on this is that as I read through this suit, what was it, about 40 pages?
Roughly, yeah.
It was like reviewing a sequence of Talking Racine shows. I mean, it was like there was nothing new on there. Jim, from years ago when this started, has been talking about these things piecemeal. Now, what this attorney did is he took and it's just so marvelously sequential and logical, and you can just go right down and you can see he brings out where the fraud is and where what was said and what was done, and it was like watching a summary of a lot of our shows. So as we're talking about this lawsuit, as we bring out the things, it's not anything, unless you're just new to Talking Racine, it's not going to be anything new that you haven't heard about before. It's going to be like a little review and a little different viewpoint of maybe what's going on.
Well, he's done it with specificity and eloquence in legalese.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's very
court documents. Yeah.
And it's just amazing. And I just, as I was reading it, I was just, Jim, I was quite proud of you. I just thought this is really marvelous. And then when I read that the judge's dismissal, I'd never seen anything so curt, so short, and just to the point.
Yeah,
dismiss. Well,
particularly
in favor of a private party over the government as a party. It's never that bad. You know how I was like Sandy Widener should have been like that. Well,
absolutely.
Produce the darn stuff, but instead we end up with a long discussion, secret meetings, going up to courts.
Wearing them down.
Way beyond. Making something complicated about something that's just been dismissed. Give her the documents.
Well, they have a tendency to outweight complainants. And just like you said, they wear them down. They refuse
that's the advantage the government has over the individual. They got all this taxpayer money to just continue to throw at us as defendants or as plaintiffs. Just
right.
And the city attorney is always dismissed because he knows that he's got a big advantage over that private party, and that he's got lots of money. He's got our money that he can throw at it. And they throw a lot of it at it. That's right. What's that?
And he knows how to delay it.
Oh, yeah. That's right. And they hire outside firms for it too. You know, it's huge amounts of money.
Well, and that's another thing about this lawsuit. I don't see where the city has a leg to stand on. Really, I really don't. And it would be incumbent upon the city attorney and the RDA to make a good faith settlement with the plaintiff. And with both Sam Azarian and with Patrick Fagan, and just do the right thing, because when these things go to trial, I don't see how the city can win them. I really don't.
No.
And if they fight this, it's going to end up costing a lot more money. There's going to be outside attorneys brought in. They're going to be making $200 an hour or whatever the going rate is.
Right, 400.
400.
Oh yeah.
It's going to cost a lot of money. If they were to make a good faith effort now to settle these, they might be able to do it.
They should have done that
a long time
2 years ago.
Yeah.
But, they, again, when I always say stupid digs itself in, I mean, it's just, you can't beat stupid. You lost. They know they lost, but exactly what you explained. They know they've got the power of the tax dollar to fight these cases, and they can win, even being wrong. They feel they can win, and they've done that before.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense for them to say, well, we're just going to deny everything and keep going.
They went through attrition, but they have lost several cases.
They have. But here, the thing about this one that's different is they are alleging fraud. Now, fraud can be...
That's crime.
That's crime. And this can be moved into... a criminal complaint also, and of course there's one out there. But the thing here is that you've got a reputable judge, you've got reputable attorneys that has this in the court system now with the motion to deny or the motion to dismiss denied. So you're in the game. Now there's going to be at some point a trial, and there's going to be dates, and there's going to be hearings, and there's more information and depositions, and now you're going to start to see this get down into the tall grass, you might say. And what comes out of that at the end, if this continues on, would be a jury trial. which then will cost a considerable more money. And I agree with you. The best thing to do is, first loss is your best loss.
Yeah.
And I just don't see them doing it.
Well, I don't either. They're too stubborn. But now, for everybody out there who would want to read this, have we got this up on the website?
Put it on this on the website, talkingracine.com.
Yeah,
It'll be on episode 150.
By the way, I thought it was relatively simple to read. There wasn't a lot of complicated legalese in the suit. And if you're familiar with the show, you're going to be familiar with a lot of things that are in there. And it's very logical, very sequential. It just shows it day by day how it started out as a government project, and then how they tried to make it look like a private project, so they didn't have to pay the plaintiff's relocation costs. And that's where a lot of the fraud came in, as well as getting him to give up certain rights that he shouldn't be giving up. And it's a very damning.
Well, it's a confusing event, or it's a confusing topic, and we've gone through this for years, and it took a long time to get all of the facts out, just to find the facts,
right,
and then to organize them in chronological order, and to actually discern what the various players were, who they were, and what their role was. It's a very complicated case for people that don't have a legal education. I think it's complicated even for somebody that does have a legal education.
Well, there's a lot. It's financing, and there's a lot of real estate terminology in it, which does kind of throw people off. But basically, we hired a straw man to come in and to steal the property from the rightful owners.
Yeah.
I mean, that's bottom line.
Well, and you gathered a lot of the facts. As George was saying, a lot of it is material that you managed to dig up through Freedom of Information requests, so on and so forth. So you were able to provide that to Sam and his attorney because they knew that you had that material available, that you already gathered it.
Well, what's concerning to me is that this is even going on, and are we going to see an end to it one of these days? Doc, you've talked about it's time for Scott Letney to move on.
Oh, God, yes.
Which I think is probably a lot of the source of the problem, is that we have these city attorneys. Well, we had another one. I'm sorry, but I don't remember that city attorney's name. You'll know who it is. When we brought Jim McLean in, who was a landlord that got charged $300,000 for a roof, for a problem with a roof that doesn't leak.
Yeah.
That was a city attorney that came out of the city attorney's office, and it's time to start looking at where the source of problems is, and why do we have those city attorneys still there, and what's keeping them there now and then you kind of get up to the mayor's office and say, well, who's keeping them there?
One of the things.
How are they anchored in there?
Well, here's one of it, and I wanted to kind of get into this. Is you have the city being sued, you have the RDA being sued. Where's the common council? I mean, are they even aware that this is actually going on around them? And then if you want to bring it into the newspaper, really, the local newspaper, I mean, this is when you're talking fraud on a city, you're talking about a big story. And there's a lot more to this story. But, truthfully, the local paper here has never brought any of this information up front. And he actually brought any of it
because I know you provided it to them.
Absolutely, they have it.
And just one other thing that just maybe the council better get a little bit more interested in what the Redevelopment Authority is. I don't know how familiar they are with that organization, but theoretically, the Redevelopment Authority is a separate entity, and one of the reasons they were put there was so that they could do things and make mistakes, and the city not be involved with paying for the loss.
Right.
That was the idea. And guess what's in this one? They're not separate. They're both involved with the loss. So the aldermen need to get wise up to this and find out what's going on and be watchful of that RDA, even though you might have been told that, well, what they do is on their own. No, it's not working that way. Not in this case.
Well, the city council voted to lend money to the supposed buyer to buy this property.
Right.
That's right. And the city attorney and the city administrator were both involved in the negotiations.
Yeah.
And so that's what, even though it's a private entity, when you start dealing with them like that was dealt with this, now guess what? The city's part of it. So it's really incumbent upon the council that they pay attention.
Okay.
Which is what you're bringing up there, Jim.
All right. let's say the council gets this information. Let's say at some point they actually read this. Isn't it the council's job, or at least the head of the common council, to bring this forth to the alderpersons to say, we have a situation here which could cost the taxpayers not only embarrassment, could be some legal ramifications. Should it not be that they should be the ones asking for this investigation? Shouldn't they not be the ones that are supplied information?
As our representatives, absolutely.
We're talking about millions of dollars here.
Now, as far as this particular complaint is concerned, I have reached out to the president of the council and just the last couple of days and told him that I've got some material for him to read. And if you're watching, you know who you are, and please get back in touch with me, because I want to give you a copy of the complaint and a copy of the judge's decision to date. And I want the council to take a very, very long, hard look at it. Well, we all do. It's certainly not just me. We do, and I'm sure that Sam would like them to look at it too, because Sam is not antagonistic toward the city at all. Sam loves Racine.
Oh my goodness, they're
I don't know why, but-
part of the Racine.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're
Well,
not quite as high as Johnson's Wax, but they're up there in that
Right, absolutely.
in that realm.
Yeah.
I mean, Azarian has been, I remember him since I came here to the city 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but talking about council's consideration, now isn't this where Sandy Widener, wasn't she kind of asking about this a long
Absolutely.
time ago?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
this
she
is
was kind of, I remember her saying that this money getting paid out of this, I mean, the city was essentially paying these payments instead of the straw man, instead of the company.
Instead of financial district.
So she was kind of asking for it, but I guess she kind of got shot down.
Well, this is where the whole secret court came into. This is to shut her down. To
Oh,
keep this
that's
quiet.
right. That was
Mm-hmm.
there might be a connection between.
Oh, there's definitely a
that's
connection
right.
there. I mean, this is an ongoing story. So if you go back to the newspaper, if somebody wants a Pulitzer Prize, this is your story. It really is.
Yeah, it's true.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a hell of a story, and it's an entity, an extension of the taxpayer, which has every right to know what's going on with their dollars, and it's been shut down. And you've got, not only do you have this straw man that comes in, you've got the, and realistically, the newspaper played right along with the city the whole time. It's the tenants that are holding up the project. I mean, there were so many red flags that went up that any good reporter would say, wait a second here, something doesn't, you're holding up a $65 million project with some tenant who has baby soap in the building? I mean, it just, red flags are all over the place. And that's when we really started looking at some of this stuff and saying, this doesn't seem right. Well, how is it that the newspaper was really just almost taking their press releases and printing them? This is what's happening, and there's a problem here and there's a problem there. Well, the problem was the developer never owned the property. The city came in and actually was the owner of that property.
Bankrolled the deal.
And had the deed in their secret vault at City Hall. That was really what was going on. So a good reporter would have actually uncovered that, and my guess is they probably knew about it and they've just kept quiet about it.
Well, and this goes back a ways, too. I mean, it goes back to 2008, I think, when they first came up with this scheme. Gary Becker was involved. John Dickert was heavily involved. Corey Mason was heavily involved before he was mayor, when he was up in the state assembly. And he actually brought in the Vanderwall and Associates to pretty much design this development. And then Rodney Blackwell and Financial District Properties was supposed to be the developer who actually brought this to fruition.
It was with the ambition that we could invest in things in the city that would be game changers for the future of the city, that we could do things that were big and bold and change the redevelopment direction of the city. And that's what you have in front of you, members of the council, an opportunity to do something big and bold that would literally change the way people think about downtown and the river, and I'd even argue the city itself. So I can't think of a more appropriate use of the funds than a big project like this. And I would even challenge you, if it's not for a big and bold project like this, what would you fund it for? I mean, it's really a great opportunity. The last thing I'll say about the developer and what I know about FDP and Ronnie Blackwell, I've had the opportunity to go to the Quad Cities and see the Kone project and see apartment buildings that he's renovated where it's market rate apartments and young professionals are moving into the downtowns and getting things done. we are lucky to have a developer like this here who wants to build market rate work, who builds things project labor agreements and knows how important it is to have local hiring and to have the people hired reflect the community that they're working in.
So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we feel very good about where we're going and what the future is going to be for us.
Okay, there is somebody here that would like to say a few words. So, State Representative Corey Mason.
And I would be thrilled and honored to have the opportunity to serve this community further as its mayor. I see myself sort of picking up the torch where this administration has taken the city.
So I'm thrilled to be in front of you today, and I would urge you to adopt what you got in front of you for an historic opportunity for the city. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Big $65 million project was going to be just glorious. Beautiful development down on the riverfront. There was going to be an economic engine driving the redevelopment of Racine. And what you got down there now is a bunch of crushed rock and cyclone
you're
fence.
pissing me off, Doc.
You know, one of the things I always go back to when I see these public officials talking about borrowing the $4.5 million and borrowing it to Blackwell to purchase the property. At that time, they had the deed to that property.
Yeah.
They owned the deed to that property. That's the amazing thing. You know, that we own this, but we're asking you for this money, but, you know, he'll never own it. We own it already currently.
Yeah.
How about that $400,000 or whatever it was that was going to put in there for environmental concerns?
Well, that's one of the things, you know, and one of the things in this complaint, let's just...
That's a part of the complaint.
Yeah. I know, it's part of the complaint, but I mean...
I want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, because that is just...
Here it is. Now, in...
That's the holdback here on...
The holdback, right. They call it a
83,
holdback. I mean, some people call it kickback, some people call it holdback, but it was for environmental remediation that they took $110,000 out of Sam Azarian's closing statement, and it was for remediation of environmental concerns. But one of the things in it, and it's number on the complaint, it's 82. The city is still holding plaintiff Sam Azarian and Sons 10% holdback of $110,000, which should have been refunded to plaintiffs because none of the 10% holdback was used for environmental remediation of the properties, but it was instead converted to use in an escrow account to pay interest payments by FDP on the $4.5 million.
And those interest payments, that's one of the things that Sandy Widener specifically asked about. Is he making payments?
Yes.
And
Are we paying it to
Friedel said,
ourselves?
"Oh yeah, he's current. He's current." I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but he's current.
Yeah.
And the way he was current was, just as he said, the money that was taken out of the sale price for Sam and Gita Jensen and Rick Olson, that was put in a trust account that the city council knew nothing about. They were absolutely deceived. That was concealed from them completely. And that's where the payments were coming from.
Mortgage fraud is actually a subcategory of the financial institution fraud. The way the FBI defines this is a crime characterized by some type of material misstatement, misrepresentation, or omission in relation to a mortgage loan, which then is relied upon by a lender. A lie that influences a bank's decision about whether, for example, to approve a loan, accept a reduced payoff amount, or agree to certain repayment terms is mortgage fraud.
FDP had nothing to do with it.
But now just look at this, and this is how blatant the fraud was. That money was taken from the sellers for environmental considerations and used to pay interest on the loan. I mean, that is how bad it got.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing. I think for the city to be doing things like that, they've just become too footloose and fancy-free up in the city attorney's office to think they can do something like that and get away with it.
Yeah.
They've just been getting away with
It's
too much.
racketeering, really.
Been pushing people around too much in the city. You know, like that $300,000 fine for not fixing a roof that doesn't leak, and you know, getting away with stuff like that. And to put that out there and to tell a flat-out lie like that, it's just amazing that they have the gall to do that.
Well, and they get away with it because you don't have a common council that is actually reacting and operating as a council. They're operating as a cheerleader for the mayor.
And Sandy Widener, she found out just on the QT. She didn't find out through any official thing. She just found out at a party or some darn thing, got the tip that this had happened. She looks it up and finds, oh, wait a second. This
Let's start
funding is being
asking
misused.
questions. Well, then at that point, that was shut it down. Let's close this down. And we certainly have to keep Sandy Widener, Alderman Widener, quiet.
So we, the council, were told that the properties that he wanted to purchase cost $4.5 million, when in all actuality, the real purchase price was only $4,550,000. So from that $4.5 million, he, Rodney Blackwell, received a kickback in the form of this loan that went into a development account called an escrow. Mr. Blackwell borrowed money from the City of Racine, cut a different deal with the sellers of the property, set up an escrow account for him to draw money out of over the last year and a half. I had no idea that I should even have asked the question of the administration if something like this would have happened.
When the gun started pointing at her and saying, okay, and we're going to...
And here's the thing.
Turn her into the ethics
that
committee.
common council went along with it. Again, not thinking, no critical thinking on there. I mean, you have these older persons that are, they get up and make a grand speech about different things, but they have no idea what's going on around them. And, this is going to come back and bite them. I mean, when you talk about criminal, every one of those public officials,
some of them could be held culpable.
Absolutely, they could be held.
And these aldermen, I think their basic problem is they're so mesmerized by the mayor, it's the mayor type of thing, that they lose their sense of reality and even the ability to think, so they don't even listen to someone like Sandy because, the mayor said that this is all right.
Right.
And they don't listen to us. I mean, they have publicly stated that we're a bunch of liars.
We are.
They actually, I think there's an email out there that actually was sent around. Yeah. Don't listen to those guys.
Well, we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's time for the aldermen to get their feet in the ground and start listening and start looking, and not just get out of this mesmerization state.
Become a leader. Try being a leader.
Yeah.
Try that.
Try just thinking on your own and not just listening to some bureaucrat that really is got their own special little program going. And and that's one thing you need to learn about the bureaucracy is they also have a program going. And they have their way that they think the city should run. And you're just a temporary fixture they have to deal with. You'll be gone tomorrow, and they'll still be there. And that's the way a lot of them look at you. So I'm just,
Well, let me just read this. This is from the Judge Frederickson's decision about the city's motion to dismiss. It is hereby ordered: 1, defendant's motion, that's the city, to strike portions of the complaint is denied.
All capital
and denied
letters.
is all in capital letters. Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
Defendant's motion to dismiss the complaint is denied. Again, in capital letters. November 13th, 2019, motion hearing shall be removed from the court's calendar. In other words, we're done. We're not going to listen to any more of this. Let's move on to scheduling a trial.
Exactly. That's very powerful.
That's a very powerful statement.
Very
personally, I think it would behoove the city to make a good faith effort to get this settled before it gets any more expensive, because it can't do anything but get more expensive from this point forward.
Read the complaint. And you say it's on our website?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Get a copy of that and read that. Don't just get advice from the city attorney or the mayor or something like that.
The
read
city
that.
attorney and the mayor have consistently made decisions that have cost us more money.
They're the one that got you into this mess.
And injured private citizens in the course of it.
Right. So it's your responsibility to read this and make a decision and not just ignore the amended complaint. You've heard about it now. It's there. And now you should read it. And then according to what Doc said here, is now you make the decision. How do you think the city attorney should do it? Now, but even if you aren't going to just make it on your own, at least read this so when you talk to the city attorney or talk to the mayor or anybody else about this case, you have the real facts that are there. Because this complaint is pretty damning, and it's not the type of thing you want to just shove off to somebody else to take care of, because you're the one that is responsible for what happens in this city and what happens with this complaint.
And for everybody else who's not on the city council, that's just regular folks like us out there watching this particular show, or any of our shows, really. Man.
Well, we've got some responsibility too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the ones putting the council members there. We're the ones that are putting the mayor there.
Keep your eye on this. You know,
we want to watch it too.
We'll keep putting materials out there. Hopefully the newspaper will pick it up and, spread it even further, because they do have a broader reach than we do, for crying out loud. I mean,
They should.
it's their responsibility.
But you know what? I think
to
this is going to
disseminate
get picked up by quite a few other. This is going to get picked up by other news sources. I mean, to count on the Journal Times to do it, they may do something with it, but it's going to get picked up by other news sources. No doubt about it.
There's no question in my mind that Milwaukee will cover this, and the Journal Times should really get off the snide and pick up this coverage and take it forth. Anyway, I guess that's about it for today. I mean, we've been harping on Machinery Row for a long time, and it keeps recurring, but this one right here, this is a big one, folks. This is a big one. The things are coming to a head now, so keep your eye on it. We'll be keeping our eyes on it, and, have a good week. We'll see you next Monday.